Hi, great. Thanks to everyone for joining. John Essig from Simplify. Excited to have you here and share our content around professional services planning. I just wanted to turn my camera on for a moment here in the beginning, and we'll go ahead and jump into our presentation and demo. It looks like we have a lot of folks on the line who this is really relevant to. So excited to share what we're implementing at a couple different projects right now for professional services. So I'm going to turn off my webcam and share my screen. Okay, Lauren, you might need to make me presenter. Okay, now I can share my screen. Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. So just a quick intro on Simplify before we get into it. So Simplify is we are a professional services firm. We're focused on implementing SAP analytics, reporting, and operational and financial planning solutions. Myself, John Essig with Simplify, have been implementing planning and analytics, financial reporting apps for the past decade plus. And before that, actually worked on corporate side administering a financial planning and consolidated reporting tool. So I've been doing this for a long time. Most of the consultants that work in our firm come from a similar background. So we are business process focused, but technically savvy, a very efficient group of people. Our focus is, again, on SAP. We're primarily now working with SAP Analytics Cloud solution, on top of which our professional service planning accelerator is built. We have offices in both Chicago and Montreal. We implement these prepackaged solutions. We provide training, managed services, and yeah. So SAP Analytics Cloud can do a lot. It is SAP's strategic tool for all of business intelligence analytics, right? It's SAP's strategic tool for all planning as well as self-service predictive. Okay, this just provides you a snapshot. What we're focused on today is professional services planning as it relates to booked business. But there's a lot more that you can do with this tool. We have a number of different prepackaged solution content areas that match up with these pretty closely, but you can do your annual plan in here. You can do a rolling forecast, planning simulations. You can do all of your financial reporting and analytics out of this solution, right? And at Simplify, what we've done is we've taken our decade plus of experience implementing a lot of these different apps across a lot of different industries. And we've built accelerators on top of SAP's platform, so you can get really quick time to value with an implementation. So if you're looking to take your professional services planning from Excel today and put it in a tool and do so efficiently, I think you've come to the right place. So in addition, for professional services firms, when you think about planning, there are a couple different areas. So we're, again, focused on professional services, which is more for booked business. There's a separate app really looking at pipeline, right? That's not something we're covering today. We do have YouTube videos out there sharing some of that content, and I believe we're going to be doing another webinar on this topic probably in the next few months as well. Planning solution architecture. So where does this fit in with your different kind of typical planning models that you would see for any organization, specifically for revenue and planning for professional services? We have a separate model to do pipeline analytics and factor your pipeline and feed that into a plan, right? That's not what we're covering today. What we're covering is the planning process for our actual resource allocation and project planning, right? So we're looking at booked business, client project capacity analysis and planning, and then translating that into your financial plan. So this, from a a forecast and plan perspective as one part of your plan, and then we add in our new business plan, and that gives you a complete P&L or revenue and cost plan that then filters into your P&L and balance sheet and cash flow and everything that can come out of this solution too. So that's all focused on the revenue sales side of the house. Also for this same solution, you have HR planning, headcount planning, capital planning, expense, and feeding into your P&L and balance sheet and cash flow reporting and planning as well. So this is one component of a much bigger program. So we'll just cover off, what's in this solution, and then we'll go ahead and get into the demo. I expect to be done hopefully end to end in 30 minutes here, and we'd be happy to, discuss further with you if you have more interest in learning more about the solution. So really quick, what are we trying to solve with this professional services planning application? So, a lot of organizations do this in Excel today. And that's very labor intensive, right? If you're a professional services firm, 50 million or above, and you're paying financial analysts to build up your plan in Excel, this is a good solution for you, right? So this can help eliminate that time and effort to manually compile all this stuff and build it. This solution is point built to automate that for you. So also, I know one of the pain points for us as an organization, as we were previously doing this in Excel ourselves as well, is the ability to track planned, profitability by client, partner, project, resource, compare that to our actual profitability. So this isn't just for resource planning. It does, provide insights into capacity, availability, and consultant, utilization and analytics on that side of the house, but it also will help you solve actually taking your staffing plan and translating that into a financial forecast, which you mentioned down here. So it automates all those calculations for, you've got hours, you've got your agreed upon SOW rates for statements of works, you've got standard costs or actual costs. We load all that data into the system and we calculate the results. Then the other thing I mentioned a little bit earlier, it's for organizations lacking the ability to run comparisons, right? You ask for a report and you're waiting 2 days to get it back, right? Instead of having the ability to slice and dice, answer your question quickly and move on to something else, right? Lastly, for organizations working in Excel, not only is it manually intensive, if you're thinking about, hey, how could I, get a better solution from a value case perspective, but it can eliminate those manual efforts, but can also be a lot of errors, right? So a solution like this can help. So we can eliminate that overhead effort to collect and aggregate. We can eliminate the errors, reduce your overhead, reduce your forecast cycles, so that, as opposed to on day 15, you can have an updated forecast on day 5, day 6, right? So those are the business problems that we're really looking to solve, provide you with a solution that allows you to plan project resource allocation by client manager, client, partner, by project, to track your resource available hours, right? So you have your planned hours for billable projects, for non-billable projects, you can incorporate into here as well. And then what's your resource capacity, right? To manage standard rates and hour assumptions and change those assumptions and understand the impact to both your client partner P&L and profitability as well as your client profitability. And then ability to do some target setting and what if analysis. So if you want to look at, a specific rate discount program that you're offering through X date, these are things that you can incorporate in the plan by just easily creating, additional planning versions or scenarios to kind of model those changes. And then ultimately at the end of the day, taking that staffing plan and producing profitability reporting by client partner resource project, right? So this can vastly reduce your time spent collecting and aggregating all this plan data, right? So you could have project managers, client partners going in and updating this so that you're not sending Excel spreadsheets back and forth, and then it can vastly reduce the planning cycles since you're not collecting and aggregating all that information manually. So those are our goals with the solution. What comes with our solution would be a next logical question. So included with the solution, we have a planning process flow to really guide you through, end to end, the process for planning professional services for book business. This could also include business that you have that's in red line, that's high probability. You could include that here in addition. You just want a clear distinction into what you're feeding in from a sales forecast, revenue forecast from a factory pipeline perspective versus when do you start including it on this side of the house. All right. You can see if you want to, Lauren's just suggesting I switch to presentation mode here. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. So what does this include? It includes that end-to-end process flow, includes a project and resource plan, revenue forecast, staff utilization, and the calculations that we discussed earlier. This is actually the model, right? So our solution provides you a model that you can plug into from any data source that you want. So this could be the data source, could be SAP. The data source could be a third-party cloud timesheet system, right? Just need a structured data source with project, client, and rate information that we're going to come out of there and use as a starting point. So we have a standard model for this planning, which includes statistical accounts to capture bill rates, resource costs, build hours, utilization hours, capture company code or region, so differences in rates and standard costs by region. Resources, including named employees and contractors, so that's a dimension within our planning model. Projects, obviously, clients and version. And then this is one of the items, with our prepackaged content, we're constantly improving this content and creating goals and roadmaps as to where do we want to focus our internal effort to help build the most value. And one of the things that I know we're updating and we've already done from an implementation perspective is add client partner as a dimension, so that if client partners change mid-project, you're able to plan for those type of things, right? It is already incorporated in our model here that you'll see today. And then this speaks to that roadmap. So what are the things, I'll show you what our application today. There's a number of planned updates that we're making that you can leverage. Some of them we've already implemented at clients, from adding client partner information, capturing available hours by region, like I talked about, multi-currency support. So those are things that we have done and we can you can leverage. But we also want to go back and build it into our starter kit, our model here. Some of the other planned enhancements are enhancing our utilization and capacity reporting. So I'll show you some examples of that we have today. We want to continue to enhance that. Client partner financial statements. So within this model, you get profitability by project, by client partner, but also want to allocate overhead expenses shared across within specific practices, across different practices. So that you can have a full view of profitability, right? So that's part of our planned updates. And then, from an implementation perspective, we're integrating our professional service plan with our pipeline and CRM plan, but want those enhancements to be back in our prepackaged content. So that's another planned enhancement for second half of 2021. So that being said, this solution, just kind of last few kind of table stake things, just to make sure we're on the same page as far as what would be required for you if you were to deploy this. We'll go ahead and jump into the demonstration part of it. So this does sit on top of SAP Analytics Cloud. So this would require, it doesn't require infrastructure. Basically, we are an SAP reseller, so we can assist you end to end with licenses and deployment, but basically you need at least one planning professional license and as many planning licenses as you would have users on the system. So this environment, as soon as you make the purchase, you get a link to log on. It's all through Chrome. There's no installations, no IT dependencies. You don't need IT to get a project going with this. So we would include, and hook into data connections. So like I said, we could pull from a Excel file with the source data for those dimensions that I've shown you, but we could also pull from any structured data source. So we could pull from whatever system that you're using today You know, our primary data source is essentially your timesheets, right? And then what's included, the models, calculations, templates, and then we can implement this for you, you know, very quickly over a matter of a few weeks. You know, if you're a $50 million organization, right, we can stand this up quickly and train you how to use it. If you're a larger organization, you know, if you're $500 million organization, you might want to have us spend a little bit longer and really build this more to your specification, right? So the length of a project is going to differ based off of, you know, how things pass your cost benefit analysis, right? How much value can we drive for you as an organization? And like I said, any structured data source is supported by this. I've mentioned the implementation time frame again, but you know, we can literally stand this up in just 2-3 weeks for organizations, get you started. We can do a full managed deployment, build more to specification in a few months or somewhere in between, right? So we try to fit this to your needs and your size of your organization. All right, so the screen now, this is SAP Online Cloud. So again, this runs on the Chrome interface here. These home pages are all, you know, configurable based off of whatever makes sense for you as a user. You can tag different visualizations and graphs and things to your home pages, or you could push this out to specific user groups. If I click on the menu button here, from here we can create stories, which would include planning templates and visualizations and reports. Are all stories that you can create within this solution. This is SAP's tool for digital boardroom. If you wanted to have touchscreen ready, boardroom type analytics or on your tablet, right, as well. You can build very, very specific dashboards with this tool. We're using all standard content. Nothing we're building and showing you today is, you know, using programming or anything like that, but you can get into that with this tool. We have the ability to create these OLAP planning models. We also have relational data sets that we can utilize within SAP Online Cloud for reporting. SAP Online Cloud has these data actions, which you'll see applied to, you know, concepts for professional services, like taking your build rates times your, you know, your bill rates times your hours times your standard costs, etc. There is currency support, as I mentioned, and this tool comes with built-in predictive capabilities, which if you know, would be more applicable to looking at like pipeline information to see, you know, what deals are going to close and feed that into your forecaster plan, which would be the other component of the planning scenario, right? You have calendar capabilities, so you can actually take a planning process and you can publish it out to X number of users based off of, you know, based off of project master data, right? Or however it makes sense for you. But this allows you to track who's input what data, gives them friendly reminders without them having to come from your email address. It comes from SAP Analytics Cloud service here. There's nothing to configure with that. That's available as soon as you set this up. This is all secured, so there may be users who you want to be able to input rate information, input hours, but you don't want them to see profitability data. So those are all things that you can secure within this model. You can set up, you know, users and teams based off of what makes sense for your configuration as an organization. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demo portion here. Looking at our catalog, we have a number of our different prepackaged content areas. As I mentioned, we have a separate one for looking at pipeline planning, CRM analytics. We're focused on more the book business side of the house, professional resource and revenue planning here. So this process flow on my screen just really guides us through each one of the individual steps at a month end to come up with your staff plan as well as your financial forecast. Once this is implemented and you've gone through a couple of planning cycles, you know, end to end, this is a, you know, few hour process, right? So again, you know, that does not include the time that it's actually spending people to input the data, right? It may take you 3 days to get them to actually, you know, log on and fill out the information. But once you get the information end to end, there's, you know, it's only a few hours of work to get everything published with this tool. So I'm not going to show every steps, but you have steps in here to help you with, hey, we want to load our prior period revenue and costs so we can do some comparative reporting and hours billed and utilization information. So we're going to load that from whatever source system that we have, right? We can add new booked projects and clients. And if we have that coming out of our timesheets system, we can point to that as a source, and we don't necessarily need to add anything manually, but we do have the ability in here. I'll click on this step to go in and add a project within the system centrally if we wanted to manage it here, right? If it's the same people managing both, having this managed in your timesheet system, provides a nice central place, but you could also have, project managers adding project, right? If that's something that you want to allow them to do, right? But so here's our data model. So this shows us the star schema of our model, which again has resource, has account, has client, project. We're going to click on project. So this is an administrative screen, part of the administrative setup. Like I said, we could click on our data management button here, and we could just click refresh, and this could be scheduled, updating from our timesheets. But if we wanted to add a project, or even, there is ability here to plan at, specific WBS, costs at different further levels of granularity if you wanted to, right? But if we wanted to add a project, we literally just come in here and we type in, the project name or number. We add a description. We identify the profit center, the product, and the client partner that's assigned at that point in time. And then we go ahead and we save, and our project is added. So that's one way to add that. Again, we can just have that pulling from our source system, or we can add it on the fly. If we allow users to add it on the fly, then as part of our administration monthly, we have to map the forecasted projects to the actual projects that were set up in the system. Unless you have really good governance, that's probably going to be required. So this is just the setup, making sure we have our clients and projects configured and our data loaded. Another setup step within here is just to identify, working days and loading standard cost type information if we didn't have that from a source system. So within here, we have a few different things that we can plan to provide us a good starting point for what are the hours we could bill. So we can look at, specific work, what are our working days within the year when we eliminate holidays. We can look at, specific utilization hours. So if we want to incorporate or load into here planned vacation time by resource, we can also do that, right? And then ultimately, we have this calculated to show us by resource what is the availability at the end of the day. I mentioned within here we have salary group inputs, so we need to make sure we understand our hours and our availability, and then we also want to understand our standard resource costs. So this would typically be by region, by band, right? Within the solution, we have a standard billing rate card as well. You're typically going to be planning the actual rate that you're agreed upon in billing with your client. But if you're in red line stage, for example, on a project, and it makes sense to start getting this planned in the system at a detailed level and assigning resources, you may not, have a negotiated rate, so you can use standard, your standard bill rate as a starting point, and then change that later. Right. So this is where you could adjust your cost per hour, load it, or again, you just have this coming from a source system here where you can change, as applicable. So that's the setup. We've loaded our data, we've loaded our time and profitability numbers and new projects information, identified the days available as a starting point for our consultants. And then here, we're actually going to go in and assign resources to projects. So this is a step that, you could be doing centrally, but a big part of this value of the tool is if you decentralize your planning process, right? Again, you can essentially publish this schedule out like you would do with an Excel schedule, but without having to actually send emails and then come back and aggregate data. So you could publish this out to your, 50 client partners, right? Or you literally click a button, they're going to open this up, and they're only going to see, if you want to secure it like that, the projects and clients that are assigned to them. They'll come in here and they'll go, by resource and by project, and they'll update their staffing plan with the hours that they're expecting, and they'll add, new assigned projects in here. they'll save the data and submit it, and you can then view that immediately, right? So if we're assigning hours, for assigning a specific, resource to a project, we can come in and we kick off this data action. We could also key it in the schedule or add rows at the bottom. But this is a nice way, if we know start and end date specifically for a resource, we can come in and we pick our client, we can pick our project, we can type in a resource name here. So Ryan Lawrence, we could type in February 20, let's say February 21st as a start date. And then we could type in, April 30th maybe as an end date. So when we make those selections and we say, okay, yep, we have Ryan booked from here to here for this project, we go ahead and we hit run. This is then going to assign Ryan to that project in our planning template based off of the available hours that Ryan has to work, incorporating holidays and everything else like that, right? So we see Ryan come up here. We don't yet have a rate. It looks like that was not loaded, so we can go ahead and adjust and load that on another screen. But yeah, this is pretty straightforward. We're basically just planning project and resource in hours at this point, right? So another option that's available within here before I move on to the next screen is to build projects from a template. So I mentioned earlier, if we don't have that project set up yet, but something's really close in redline, we want to plan it here. We want to start to allocate, resources here. We can come in and we can pick a specific project size, a standard, based off of individual project, a start and end date, and this will actually load kind of a standard rate card for us and a project placeholder within our plan. So that's kind of neat. And then, like I mentioned here, on the bottom, if we want to just go ahead and add specific, projects as a new row, we can right click and say add member, and then just start typing in that specific row that's been added, the project and the resource information, etc. Right. So once we planned our hours, we can also then look and update, model our rate information that we've already loaded as part of a setup step, or if we needed, end users to plan the bill rates based off what they're negotiating, this is where they could be doing that in the system here, right? So they can go by project, by resource, plan their service revenue rates and costs. And then this is ultimately then going to calculate the revenue and profitability for those individual projects. If you created a project as a starting point and then want to go back and assign a specific resource now that you have it allocated to this project, there's a step here where you can pick the resource for that project. There's a step here where you can also then take a forecast project, and now you have it booked and you can sync them up as an end user here, as opposed to doing that from an administrative perspective. And then when you're done, you're going to go ahead and you're going to, calculate your revenue and your cost, which this is essentially a data action within SAP Online Cloud that just handles that math for you. So once you've done your hours plan, we can then come in here and review our summary plan information and the calculated results of the data that we were already seeing. So we have a standard kind of report package here. This can be, again, built to your requirements, but this is here for you as a starting point that we can plug in. So we can look here and evaluate and review our resourcing by employees, our utilization, our project margin, hours. This kind of has all the components of the things that we're calculating within the tool for review. We can also look at our actual KPIs. So if we want to look at our margin to date, our utilization to date, our project margin as a percent in a visual, in a graphic visualization, we can do that. We could, zero in on specific projects with these filters. Everything that you have available within your dimension from these models is filterable and selectable. So we can pick a specific client. We could even come in and pick a specific client partner and see their revenue and their margin information across the projects that they're running. So we have that summary for actual. We can look at the same thing for plan. And then this is all being translated again into financial plan, right? So by period, by product, by client partner, we can see the details of our revenue, of our costs, and our margin. That all bubbles up into, all this information then bubbles up into a financial statement, right? So you can see you might have one partner, doing higher volume, lower margins. You might have someone else, doing lower revenue, higher, right? So you can get a lot of insights from this detail and help make sure that you're, driving profitability, making the right decisions here. Let's see what else might be interesting. From a capacity analysis perspective, you can come in here and look at by resource, their available hours, their working hours, what resources you have in February and March, and where you could allocate that, whether that be to external projects or internal projects, right? Let's see, is there anything else I want to show in here? Yep. I think that's it. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up here. If anyone has interest in seeing more of the solution, learning how we can help you guys implement this, would be happy to meet with you one-on-one, right? But we'll just pause here and take any questions before we wrap up. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'll give you back the next 25 minutes. I like to keep these to half an hour when we can, like I said. And please don't hesitate to reach out if we can help you.